Angel's Egg! Hello everyone and welcome to day 2 of MIAMAFV. Maybe I'll actually make a fucking video. I'm going all month, people. You didn't think I was gonna do it. I'm serious. Every fucking day of May, you're getting a video. Here's another one. So just like I said last time, we're talking about the animated film Angel's Egg.
Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into this fucking thing.
So the film was directed by Mamoru Oshii and was co-written, and character designs were done by Yoshitaka Amano. In case you don't know, Mamoru Oshii was the guy who made the first Ghost in the Shell movie and a bunch of other shit that literally everyone loves. Yoshitaka Amano, on the other hand, is the famous character designer from series like Final Fantasy and Vampire Hunter D. This is a film made in 1985 as sort of an experimental avant-garde film that the two collaborated on and pretty much just made on a whim. Apparently there was like a big animation bubble economy going on at the time and they just got money to do it. I don't even know how, but they did. And thank God they did, because this movie is a fucking masterpiece. It's a gift. It's a fucking gift from beyond. You know, I've gone on record before as saying that Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is one of my favorite animated films because it so perfectly captures Yoshitaka Amano's art style. That sort of ephemeral quality that never really translates all that well. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust did it the best. Well, frankly, this movie is far better at that. Looking at it now, Bloodlust is kind of more like gritty and real. It's like a more down-to-earth interpretation of Amano's art style, whereas this is pure like off-the-wall, avant-garde, weird images that may have some metaphorical meaning that's hard to decipher. It's fucking masterful. And combined with the directing style of Oshii, you know, and the two collaborating on writing this thing, it's a fucking, like, a fucking Minotaur's labyrinth of visual good stuff, and I absolutely loved every second of watching it. So let's get into the actual film. So let's do a quick run through the whole thing and then circle back and kind of look at it one more time. So the film opens with this boy looking at this big glowing mechanical sphere floating out of the sea with this big glowing eye with a bunch of these like goddess statues or something on it. The scene then kind of transitions to this little girl who's got this egg. She wakes up in the morning, she's sort of awakened by the sounds that sound like they came from that giant orb. She's awakened by that, and she gathers up this egg that she was sleeping with in her bed, and she takes it outside. We then kind of follow her around just like some day-to-day activities as she's in this like what looks like a post-apocalyptic city. There's no other people that we can see there, and it's just the ruins of this big city. And she goes around kind of doing day-to-day stuff, like collecting food, this little, strawberry-looking paste that she eats. She's got this hobby of collecting these cylindrical glass jars, basically, and she likes to empty them out of whatever they had, fill them up with water, and then take her back to go do stuff. So we just see her doing a bunch of stuff like that. As she's filling up one of the jars, we see a whole bunch of fucking trippy animation of her in this woods as she's getting water. She's sort of this like ghost from the woods like swoops over her, and she looks like she passes out and falls into the water, and she's all I just really want to stress, I'm going over like the tangible details here, but you need to watch this film. You need to see this film. This is a film, in the truest sense of the word. This is a visual medium that communicates images to you through animation, and you can't describe it very well. I'm going to talk about the details that I noticed that I really liked, but please, for the love of God, go see this film, watch it, download it, do whatever you have to do. This is probably my favorite animation I've seen since Eromanga Sensei. not fucking around. This is a 10 out of 10. Go watch it. Anyway, so eventually the girl is in the city again, and these weird like lobster tanks kind of come over the hill, and riding one of them is the boy from the start of the movie. He's riding one of them. He jumps down. They have this kind of interaction. Clearly she hasn't been around a lot of people in a long time, and so she's pretty scared of him. So they kind of spend a little bit of time facing off, and she's scared and she runs away. He's sort of following her around. He doesn't seem hostile at all. He's just kind of curious. And so he follows her around for a little while. He kind of asks about her egg, like, what are you doing with that egg? What's inside your egg? And she's defensive. She doesn't want to talk about it. So she just runs off. Eventually, there's a scene where a bunch of these weird, like, ghosty blue fisherman guys who seemed like they were kind of like statues. They were totally immobile when the girl walked by them before. They seem to like have come to life. There's like a hunt going on. And they proceed to chase down these shadows of fish that are sort of swimming on the walls of the city and on the city streets. And the girl and the boy kind of just observe this happening and, kind of don't want to get in the way. So the boy kind of like shields her under his cloak, and she is kind of grateful of that. So they've sort of formed a bond of trust a little bit more after that passes, and the fishermen guys finish what they're doing and leave. After this, the girl decides to take the boy back to the place where she lives, this sort of big construct of a weird, undiscernible shape, and they go back to it, and they're kind of hanging out, and she deposits another one of her water-filled jars that she loves so dearly. She deposits one along this huge string of them going like down this hallway in this big cavern in the place that she lives. And the guy's like, holy shit, have you been doing this like every day? Is this like one jar per day? Because there's like thousands, millions, I don't know, there's like a billion fucking jars. And you've been doing this a long time. So they're kind of talking about how neither of them really remember what their purpose in life is. They basically both sort of have amnesia. They just don't understand what's going on in the world. They don't know why they're there. They don't know who they are, and they don't know what their purpose is. So, they're kind of just wandering souls who happen to meet and, are together briefly. Our boy here starts quoting Bible passages as they're hanging out, and he tells this story that clearly seems to be like the origin story of what happened. So he's telling the story of Noah's Ark. So God says from on high, Noah, I'm going to flood the earth because it's too goddamn sinful and I'm sick of all this shit that I made. So I need you to build an ark to protect you and your family because you're the only good ones worth saving. Build that, get 2 of every animal, a male and a female, put them in your ark, and go live on that. There's a difference here, though, and it's at the end of the 40 days and nights of rain that flooded the earth. They're there for a long time. But after a while, Noah sends out a dove to go try to find dry land. Since they can't see it, they're trapped up on Mount... there's like a biblical mountain that Noah's Ark was put on top of. So they send the dove out to find dry land. Essentially, the dove never comes back, is the takeaway point here. So instead of what happens in the Bible, of the waters receding and the Noah clan going back out and seeding the rest of the earth, it doesn't happen. They just stay in the boat, and that's the end of the story. The guy also points to a tree that's carved into one of the walls that they walk by and are sitting around, and it's this big, it's clearly like a branching network of trees, and he talks about him having like a memory of a tree he had once seen like that, which had the quality of sort of draining the resources from the ground in which it was planted, and is kind of, the tree branches are kind of reaching upward to try to grasp something above them, but failing to do so. Which is an interesting thing we'll come back to. The girl, however, is very interested in the dove, and asks him about it. But he instead just kind of starts talking about, are we even real? Is life real? Is anything fucking real? I don't know. Are you real? I'm gay. Everyone's gay. So he says like, hey, maybe you're an illusion. Maybe I'm an illusion. Maybe this whole world is an illusion dreamt up by someone who's no longer even here. And the girl quickly retorts, no, incorrect. The dove is not fake. I've seen the dove. I know the dove. The dove is my best friend. And the guy is like, okay. So she takes him to go see the dove. And what she takes him to is a giant imprisoned angel trapped in stone as a fossil embedded on one of the walls in the place they're in. And the walls, incidentally, are covered in these skeletons of embedded things, of fossils. And clearly, the way their discussion goes, clearly it has been a very, very long time that these things have been here. And that they've been doing what they've been doing in their lives. And, and they've forgotten even how they got there. It's totally gone from their minds. So the guy has a very interesting reaction to this. He looks at this angel. Clearly he's surprised by this and just kind of looks, reserved. He's like, okay. understood. The guy, by the way, has been quizzing the girl all along. Hey, do you know what's in your egg? What's in your egg, little girl? What is in your egg? And by the way, neither of them have names. Presumably, they've been forgotten over time. So now that they're done with their little angel adventure, the two go down and they hunker down for the night. So they set up camp, and the girl goes to sleep, and the guy kind of, stays awake. And when he sees the girl fall asleep, he stands up, he takes the egg from her, he puts it down, and he takes this instrument, this big cross-shaped thing he's been carrying the whole time, and he smashes that shit. He destroys the egg. We then cut to sort of the next day. Over the night, there was a big flood that kind of covered a lot of the land, but it's morning, and it seems like it's receded. The girl wakes up, and she sees the shattered egg on the ground, and she flips out. She freaks the fuck out because this egg that she treasures, clearly, has been destroyed, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. She then runs outside to go confront the dude, and as she's going to get him, she's so distraught, she trips right over this cliff edge, and she falls down. And as she's falling down, she sees the image of an older version of herself, of a fully grown adult version of herself, reflected in the water that she's falling towards, which she then kind of touches and merges with, and then seems to sort of become the older version. And as she's falling down into the water, she breathes out and she disappears downward, but the bubbles from her breath rise up to the surface of the water, lift to the top, and become eggs. The bubbles transform into eggs. There's kind of a weird cut then, as what it looks like happens is each of those eggs seems to have sort of sprouted a tree that has lifted it into the sky as a little, egg containing a little bird inside it. So clearly some time has passed now, and these egg trees are all over the place. And the last thing we see is the boy on the shore, once again, holding his big cross-shaped weapon, looking out over the sea. And from the sea, just like at the beginning of the movie, that giant orb with the big eye from the very start rises out of the sea, and upon its back, it was covered in goddess statues or priestess statues or just woman statues, as we saw from the beginning. There's a new statue on there, and it's the girl with the egg. We then kind of just zoom outward. We're looking down at the boy. We then zoom out and zoom out and zoom out, and we just see the place that this all took place on. This little island is just one small island in a giant sea of water, and we zoom out and we don't see any other land anywhere, and that's the end of the movie. Okay. So those are the tangible details, but now that we're at the end, we can go back and analyze everything that I just talked about. So let's actually start with that very last shot, because to me, that is where my journey of understanding began. So the very last shot of the big zoomed out shot of the island on which this whole story took place, it's clearly got a weird shape to it. It's got kind of a line down the center of the land with a bunch of clearly oddly straight lines across the whole thing. And essentially, what we can gather is that it is clearly the upturned bottom of a boat. So let's just cut to the chase here. This is clearly Noah's Ark, upside down, floating in water, having become an island upon which the last civilizations of men had survived for some amount of time after the biblical flood. Because what we're kind of all learning at once now is that origin story of the Noah's Ark flood, where the dove never came back and they never found dry land, that was true, and they're on Noah's Ark right now. The place they're on is Noah's Ark. And by the way, before I go any further, I just want to say, this is in fact interpretation. I cannot prove any of this is correct, but to me, everything I'm going to say makes by far the most sense and is the most legit interpretation. I've looked around for some other stuff. I even fucking read the Bible passage. Guys, I'm trying so hard to make shit content for you. I feel like I'm letting you down. I'm trying really hard to make lazy, shitty content. It's just really, really difficult, okay? So please bear with me. In any case, now we're learning that this biblical story of Noah's Ark is true, and that, all the implications of Christianity that come along with that. And when I realized this, when I realized that was a boat and that it was based on Noah's Ark, that's when I went back and reflected on the whole story and did a little bit of research. And the first thing I found is something really common that people say about Angel's Egg. And they say that it was inspired heavily by Mamoru Oshii's, the director. It was inspired by his loss of faith in Christianity as a young man. So if you look at everything that happened in the story under a lens of a loss of faith, everything makes 1,000 times more sense and is pretty darn clear. And let's go through the fucking list of the ways how. Okay, so going back to the very start of this thing, that big orb that, with the big glowing eye that appeared at the beginning and the ending of the film, I'm just going to say that thing is God. That thing is pretty clearly some representation of God, or perhaps heaven, something along those lines. And that's going to make a lot of sense when we talk about the full context of the characters and what they represent. Because I'll just tell you right now, to me, the characters in the story, the girl and the boy, clearly represent two sides of the way that people view faith. This girl, to me, clearly represents innocence and a faithful devotion. The way that she is an isolated character, having nothing else in her life, living in this empty city, only populated by madmen, the only thing that's important to her that has any real worth is her egg. And by the way, when our dude here broke the egg later on in that scene, if you look, the egg was empty. There was nothing inside the egg at all. So this girl had been spending her whole life protecting an egg, talking about how when it hatches, it's going to be a new bird. It's going to replace the dove. During the scene where she shows our dude the angel, she talks about how that's the bird, and she's going to hatch a new bird. The bird that she has in her egg is going to replace that one, and it's going to be a beautiful new future. It's going to be warm. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be everything that she wants in life. But then the egg is empty when it's finally shown what's inside. He had been asking the entire film, hey, what's in the egg? When are you going to look inside the egg? You should probably look inside that egg. And she flat out refuses to do it. But when she finally is forced to confront what's inside, when he forces her to, there's nothing there. And she flips her shit. Not to mention the fact that in flipping her shit, she turns into an adult version of herself. Maturity? Incidentally, and that is clearly where our dude comes in here, our dude represents, to me, clearly a loss of faith, and also probably the ideals of skeptical inquiry and things of that nature. Because the whole film, he's going around inquiring about what's in the egg and protecting the girl from the fisherman guys who are clearly insane. Let's talk about the fisherman guys for a second. So the fisherman guys are chasing these shadows of fish along walls, and they're throwing their harpoons at them, trying to catch it, trying to obtain it. To me, this is pretty clearly a representation of religious devotion. Coming from the perspective of a guy who directed this, who had just lost all his faith in religion, specifically Christianity, we're dealing with a bunch of people blindly chasing shadows of things that once existed but no longer do, and trying everything they can do to catch them, and causing a whole lot of destruction in the process. Not to mention, there's a part where the little girl goes into a church which has as its symbol a big stained glass picture of the fish. Which to me pretty clearly shows it as sort of like an idol being worshipped, or just like a god. And these madmen are running around trying to capture it. That is not real. That is a phantom. That doesn't exist. That they have no reason to be chasing, and they're mindlessly obsessed with it. Pretty clearly matches what I think some atheists would be thinking. And back to our dude here, of course, he's the one who actually smashes the egg, right? He is the skeptical inquiry that destroys that empty shell of hope that the girl was clinging to so intensely. She flipped her shit. She was devastated. That was the most important thing in her life. That thing defined her entire life, and to lose it was to A, mature immediately, and B, to kind of die instantly, because, you know, she immediately turns into eggs and drowns at once, having lost, this object of such great importance in her life. I mean, he flat out says the line, what do you think is inside that egg? You have to break an egg if you want to know what is inside. So let's talk about the symbolism of the girl drowning, becoming an adult, and then specifically the symbolism of the eggs that emerge from her breath, that then sprout and sort of cover the land. I see a couple ways that could be interpreted, and I'm not actually that concrete on any particular one of them. So, you can judge this for yourself. By the way, this whole thing you should judge for yourself. Mamoru Oshii has gone on record saying he does not know what the film is about. So it's up to us to guess. So feel free to make your own interpretations of any of this shit. That said, I'm objectively right. In any case, those eggs with the trees reaching outward and upward, so they really remind me of there's a mural that they saw. I think I described this already, but there's a mural on the wall at one point when the two are hanging out in the little girl's place that clearly resembles the tree of life. That is, it's got the branching paths. Yeah, I did describe this already. It's got, the multiple, little branching pathways that sort of evolution and the tree of life represent. And to me, the way that they're described by the dude, okay, he talks about how when he sees that picture there, he says it reminds him of a tree he once knew of that drained the resources from the land around it and reached upward as if it was reaching towards something. To me, that pretty clearly represents like a sort of spiritual evolution thing. Okay, so clearly the evolution thing is going on. What with the tree reaching upward and sort of trying to biologically obtain enlightenment at the very top. It sounds like they're looking for a transcendence. I mean, in this case, that's clearly a religious connotation they're going for. I mean, I would put it in more secular terms if I wanted to describe it, because I think there are probably higher levels of consciousness that humans can attain. Well, maybe not humans, but that it is possible for organisms out there in the universe somewhere, or our descendants perhaps, to attain. In either case, they both fit here. So those trees with the birds in eggs, the embryos of birds at the very top that the girl has sort of given birth to, I mean, you could take it a couple different ways. Since they are birds, and in this anime, the birds and angels are pretty clearly linked, you could say that there's a more religious connotation here. So the girl had her egg, right? It was shattered and it was empty, and there was nothing in there. But, like, despite the fact that there was nothing there, she still was able to, like, through her efforts, like, mature spiritually and then give birth to all these, like, new eggs with actual birds in them that could, like, build a spiritual rebirth and like, give new enlightenment to humanity. I don't see it that way at all, and I don't think that gels at all with the other messages in this series. It was just something I read online that I found not so legit. What I personally think is possibly more being implied here is how it was, not this egg that she found that did anything of that nature, that was sort of an evolutionary tool, but it was the fact that a human being evolved to this point, and she, instantly matured, and she became a vessel, and gave birth to these eggs. And that's sort of like the tree represents, like I was saying before, the biological evolution, and that's human beings aspiring to that, like, higher level of consciousness ourselves, separate from God. Because if there's one thing that is true of the world of Angel's Egg, it is that God has abandoned them. And this is where I get my whole thesis about how this really feels like an atheistic standpoint, because to the characters in the story, God is obviously real. God flooded the world, God created the angels, and all that shit is legit. Christianity is canon to Angel's Egg, just with a different ending was obtained here. This is a world without hope, because this is a world where God left. God didn't finish his bargain with Noah at the end. God just let the thing go on forever, and what we're left with is this empty shell of a world where the only things that exist are, like, a little girl hoping to find a better future for herself, and a guy who is clearly like a god killer, like a big atheistic hunter of angels who ain't having that shit. If God is real in this universe, this guy wants to kill him. This guy is out for blood. I can tell. He carries that giant metallic cross. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. I feel strongly that this guy is sort of a Christ-like figure, but his cross is made of metal, right? It is a metal instrument, clearly of technological origin, which to me signifies the intervention of man, or, some kind of intelligence, so a man-made thing. He's carrying a cross made of technology, as opposed to the wooden one that Christ carried. To me, that shows a pretty big, like, atheist Jesus over here, or like technological scientific Jesus. Skeptical inquiry is this dude's Bible. And now let's come to the most interesting part, the very end, with God showing up one more time. That giant glowing orb rising out of the ocean at the very end, upon which this girl has become another ornament. Now again, I can see a bunch of ways to interpret this, but to me, I kind of interpret it as this girl has sort of become a sacrifice to the altar of this giant god. And by the way, this god is also, just like his cross, is clearly metallic and is not of a natural origin. So just thinking about it along the same lines as this dude and his cross, I think he could be going for a message that this god, being a machine, is also of man's own design. So to me, it's coming at from the standpoint of, in this world, God is a mechanical creation of man, whereas in our world, as the observer, we can interpret that as, God is the invention of man's imagination and man's, like, need to anthropomorphize the universe. And that's it. That's what I see Fuck yeah, that's what I see this anime as. It's a big atheist piece. It's about a man losing faith. I don't think there's any debate about that. The Christian symbolism is through the roof. Evangelion, go fuck yourself. This is real Christian symbolism with an actual meaning behind it. This is the good shit, folks. This is the good shit. Mostly, I wanted to talk about the symbolism inherent here because this is a message that I'm very much into. And even though I am a big atheist myself, I fully understand what it's like for someone with intense faith to go through sort of the deconversion process or to like lose their faith in God. Like imagine strolling along one day, you know, you think God's got your back all the time, and then something happens, something wakes you up to the fact that, oh wait, there's nothing there. I'm gonna die when I die, and there's not gonna be anything after it. That's fucking terrifying. That is world-altering stuff that you're realizing there. And Mamoru Oshii, I mean, according to what I read online, apparently it was rumored, so this might not be true, but apparently when he was young, he was thinking of attending a seminary to like become a priest. So this dude was like way into it. And, you know, the fact that this anime exists and has this level of like deep mindfuckery and like existential despair at their, you know, not being the god and there being none of the hope. Like the egg is empty, guys. The egg is fucking empty. I feel deep, intense existential despair coming from this anime, and it is so fucking succulent. This anime is a literal 10 out of 10. I loved every single second of watching it. This film is a fucking tour de force of audio-visual joy. The soundtrack is great, and the animation is just so fucking wonderful. I love the character designs. I love the animation. I love everything this fucking movie does. I love every fucking thing about this movie. If you haven't seen this, please go watch it. I guarantee my description did not do it justice. I'm just talking about like the intellectual stuff that I got from it, but go just experience this film. It was already one of my favorite films just by finishing it the first time and not understanding a single fucking thing that happened because it's just so juicy. This is a film that really brings Yoshitaka Amano's vision to life, his you know, style to life, and oh my god, I loved every fucking second of it. Angel's Egg is a fucking masterpiece. Everyone go watch it, and hopefully you enjoyed my interpretation of it here. My interpretation is objectively right, but hey, maybe you'll have an interesting one too. Oh my god, I almost forgot to talk about Dark Souls! Okay, everybody, so now you get what Angel's Egg is about, and there's not that much connection to Dark Souls really, but we'll go through what there is pretty darn quick. So first of all, if you just watch Angel's Egg, you'll feel a very similar tone to what there was in Dark Souls. Really, again, watch the fucking movie. There's a lot of bits where things just like feel so Dark Souls, you know, like there's this empty city where there's nothing good and the only thing there is evil, hostile things. And there's this whole air of like a forgotten world or a world that has fallen into like disrepair or darkness. And like you are one of the last things left. Like our soldier dude here really feels like, you know, like a chosen undead type of dude. And the girl feels like, you know, like one of the NPCs who happen to still be alive. And of course, as I described, the feelings of, you know, deep existential despair, very reminiscent of ye old Dark Soul. Just look at some shots like this. Look at some shots like this. Look at some shots like these. Tell me that's not Dark Souls. And since we know Miyazaki got direct inspiration for visuals from this movie for Dark Souls 3, it's pretty likely that it's been an influence all along. Okay, so that's all vague. Let's talk about specific shit. So, of course, the thing that got me interested in checking out Angel's Egg in the first place is the obvious similarity of Filianor from Dark Souls 3 The Ringed City and her egg thing to Angel's Egg in general. The idea of like this big long-haired woman, you know, cradling an egg and being protective of it and it like hiding a secret. That shit is clearly out of fucking Angel's Egg. And of course, you'll notice that our girl here happens to look almost identical to the painter girl from Dark Souls 3 Ashes of Ariandel. In this way, the two DLCs of Dark Souls 3 are very, you know, Angel's Egg inspired, you know, kind of across the board, as well as Dark Souls 3 in general, with its, you know, feelings of like the end of the universe is nigh, and it's, you know, it's the dark days have come, it's the end of everything. Though, in fairness, Dark Souls has always kind of had that feeling. Incidentally, this girl and this boy have no name, you know, but especially this girl, because the painter girl from Dark Souls 3 Ashes of Ariandel, she has no name either. So, I mean, she looks the same, she has no name, and of course, let's think about their thematic similarities, even though they might have different outcomes. So, the painter girl in Dark Souls 3, she is trying to paint a new world to sort of create a new future for herself, right? To, you know, like kind of give birth to a new lease on life to herself and, you know, whoever else can take comfort there and you know, find a new life there. Our girl here spends all her time nursing this egg, and it's made pretty clear in her dialogue that when she wants this thing to hatch, she hopes that the future will be better. You know, one of the things that's happening in Angel's Egg is that the skies are cloudy the entire time. You never see the sky, and it's very dark and depressing and cold. And she talks about wanting to see a future with warmth and you know, happiness. You know, hey, warmth, fire, link to fire, same shit, guys. Angel's Egg is Dark Souls. One very interesting difference to me, though, is the fact that in Dark Souls 3, once you beat all the DLC, you succeed in getting the Dark Soul pigment for the Painter Girl, and she is actually going to successfully use that to create a new world. As far as we know, it's a safe assumption. She's going to do it. That's a very, like, triumphant feeling. You know, I felt really triumphant in the fact that, you know, my actions are directly responsible for creating a new world that's going to save people in the future and gonna, you know, be the way existence continues. That's a good feeling. The way I interpret Angel's Egg, however, not so hopeful. The egg was empty, it was a lie all along, your faith is blind and hopeless, and you should abandon it immediately and, you know, just be a depressed sad sack like this dude and me. No, for real, secular humanism is a real thing. Look it up, it's great. So the feeling coming from Angel's Egg is really one of, like, terrible despair, you know, like I was describing before, like the feeling of a man having lost something so important. Like, this world has been abandoned by God. You know, these are the remnants left, and it's going to shit. It's no good. It's not going to stay like this for very much longer. And that's the extent of it. You know, that's about everything. Really, I'd say the biggest thing is there's a couple obvious visual parodies. You know, the girl and the Painter Girl, the egg motif, and this idea of, like, hope and holding rebirth and doing that shit. That's where I see interesting similarities between the two. Incidentally, I have no idea what is actually in Filianor's egg from the Ringed City. You can kind of see into it, and I don't really know what that thing even does in Dark Souls 3. Like, you break it and you go to the future, so, like, was it a time travel device? Was it, like, holding back the passage of time? I have no fucking idea what that means, and I don't really get it. So it's kind of hard for me to draw a parallel there. If you know, please explain it to me, because I don't fucking get it. And that's gonna do it for episode 3 of MIAMAFV. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you tomorrow with episode 3. Bye-bye!